Hey there, crew. Today I'm going to read about the artist Mary Blair, who was a Disney artist extraordinaire, and the story is called Pocketful of Colors. So, as you can see, even just from the cover, color was probably the main element in the artwork of Mary Blair, who worked for Walt Disney Studios. And you can also see that shape and pattern was also a huge ingredient to her artistic recipes. And I love the patterns and colors and shapes that are in the front cover as well. Just so cool. Alright, here's her story. Under a wide blue sky, on a red dirt road, in a lemon yellow house, there lived a little girl named Mary. Other children collected marbles or dolls and toys, but Mary collected colors of every shade and every hue. The illustrations are just prime time in this story, I do believe. So you can see like the patchwork of the ground all has patterns, shapes, and colors, and lines that are reminiscent of Mary Blair's work. One day, Mary's parents announced they were moving out west. As she waved goodbye to the yellow house, Mary tucked her friend Lemon in her pocket. Mary would miss the happy home, but she had new colors to collect. So remember that lemon yellow was her house's color. Driving across the sun-bleached desert, Mary spied russet, taupe, and sienna. So reddish browns, grayish browns. When she arrived in California, she glimpsed the azure ocean and found groves of golden fruit dripping from viridian trees. So azure sounds like azul, blue, and then viridian is a very bright, pure green. So she's collecting the colors that she sees. In the city, she discovered steel gray buildings and mauve-tinted skies. So purplish grays, pale purples. Mary opened her sketchbook. She mixed her paints. She would save these shades for just the right time. Collecting her colors. Using a sketchbook just like us. When she was older, Mary went to art school. She met Lee. He showed her rosy pink and blushing red. She kept those colors in her heart. Together, Mary and Lee painted rainbows, but it was the Great Depression and people were poor. No one was buying rainbows, except one place in particular. So the Great Depression back in the late 1920s and 1930s. Mary landed a job at Walt Disney Studios, one of the first women ever to be hired there. Finally, a place for her colors to run and dance and play as they pleased. And there's Walt Disney himself at the animation studios. But on her first day of work, the men in charge didn't want to talk about cerulean or celadon or cerise. They were only interested in black and white. So cerulean is like a clear blue sky. Celadon is like a grayish green. And then cerise is like, think cherry red. But they're only working in black and white, and Mary was told to follow the rules. Oh boy. She tried, but her colors were too vivid, too wild. When Mary turned in her work, all her ideas were rejected. Twinkling emerald skies, the men turned them blue. Magenta horses that could fly, the men made them brown and put them in a stable. Peach giraffes with tangerine spots, her bosses just shook their heads. They didn't know what to make of her artwork. So she was using wild, exciting colors, and they were not about it at first. But Walt, the man who owned the company, did like him. He loved her colors so much he asked Mary to join him on a trip to South America to meet some new colors. And there's Walt Disney and Mary in the airplane to South America. And I've been to South America, and let me tell you, the colors are amazing. Mary delighted in the colors of Brazil, Argentina, and Peru. She worked hard to capture the vibrant scenery, and when it was time to go home, Mary's bags burst with fuchsia, teal, aquamarine, indigo, lime green, and banana yellow. I love the birds, the nature, all the colors. The landscapes of South America provide a lot of fun colors. That is for sure. After Mary returned to Disney, her concept art for the studio's upcoming films grew even more adventurous as she drew upon the eye-popping shades she'd observed in South America. Cinderella needed a teal pumpkin coach, she thought. The caterpillar in Alice in Wonderland could only be aquamarine, and the mermaids in Peter Pan simply had to be lime green. Do you think they'll like them? I do. This time, some of Mary's ideas were accepted, but most of her art was still considered too modern, too abstract, and just not right. Mary's colors encouraged her to leave the men with their black lines and strict rules. She had enough. So she left. And look, she's taking all her colors with her. She almost looks like a peacock. Mary quickly found new work designing advertisements, illustrating picture books for children, and creating sets for plays and television commercials. She enjoyed the freedom of these new jobs, but Mary missed Mr. Disney. Then one day, out of the blue, her phone rang. It was Walt. "Mary, I have a project for you. I need your wild and beautiful colors," his voice boomed. Walt explained his idea to build a magical ride that would teach people about cultures from around the world. The ride had to be full of color, which meant there was only one person for the job. "Mary, you know about colors I've never even heard of before," said Walt. Mary smiled, and then she frowned as she remembered the rules and the lines and the men in charge who didn't understand her colors or her style of art. There was only one way to answer. "Yes," said Mary. But her yes came with a condition. This time Mary wanted to be the one in charge, and Walt Disney welcomed her aboard. Mary's paint seemed to sparkle when she hung up the phone. She had never been to places like China or Morocco or Kathmandu, but her colors had. Sitting down to work, she squeezed out dabs of paint: lemon yellow, aquamarine and azure, mauve, taupe, tangerine, russet, sienna, steel gray, celadon, cerulean, cerise, magenta, teal, indigo, emerald. They shined from her palette, and when she picked up her brush, the colors Mary had so carefully collected all her life took her on a trip around the globe. So cultures and countries from around the world are full of color and life, and that's what Mary wanted to capture. When the work was done and the ride opened, people gasped in awe. "It's a Small World" was a sensation. Mary Blair was also very good at making castles out of shapes and colors as well. So you can see all those different shapes, colors, lines, patterns. When it was Mary's turn to take the ride, she leaned back in the boat and let her colors wash all over her. It was a world of laughter, a world of smiles, and color, color, color everywhere. This, at last, was Mary's world. And that is the end. And here's a picture of Mary and Lee Blair sketching in Brazil when she went to South America. And then more patterns and shapes in the back. So Mary Blair was kind of a pioneer for women artists, one of the first ever to work for Walt Disney, and one of the first to use abstract, wild, and sensational colors. And color is probably my favorite element of design as well. So she used her shapes, patterns, and colors to kind of change the world, so to speak, and then also to travel the world and connect those cultures to make one of the most famous rides of all time, It's a Small World After All. I hope you enjoyed her story and maybe can be inspired by her artwork and story as well. Adios, amigos.